Hi, and welcome back to SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we have Jason Mun, Group Chief Search Officer at Overdose Digital. We talk a lot about e-commerce SEO, how to choose the right platform for your site, content marketing, and how AI can help. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Yeah, so speaking of that industry itself, how long have you been in it and what exactly were you doing before you got into the industry?
Sure. I think on last count, I've been working in SEO for like over 15 years. Graduated as a systems analyst. So what that course or degree basically entailed was a little bit of IT, a little bit of management, a little bit of marketing. And that also basically meant that I didn't have a specific specialized skill set. And when I landed my first job out of university, it was with a company that specialized in building websites for small businesses. So I got exposed to platforms like WordPress and Joomla, and I was basically learning front-end dev. So I was pretty familiar with HTML and CSS. It was the old classic, take a template, customize a template to be unique for a client, and help the client launch a web presence. And so happened Google popped into the radar and started to make a lot of noise around search engine. Search engine back in the day was still Lycos and Alta Vista and all those kind of things. And just Google just came along and swept everybody away and gained significant market share. And that's where, my boss told me, hey, can you go and research something about whatever this SEO thing is all about and try and help some of our clients rank for some keywords. That's when I went down the rabbit hole, and I guess you could say the rest is history. So from a front-end dev, I slowly transitioned myself into the agency side and learning the craft of SEO, testing and learning myself, building my own sites, breaking it, getting penalized, and then starting my own consultancy. And I guess the rest is history.
I was going to ask about the consultancy. How do you manage to kind of do your regular work along with consulting with other brands and then somehow maintaining your independence between the both?
Yeah. So when I started my own consultancy, it was by chance, to be honest, because like everyone else, I had a full-time job. I had a 9-to-5 job. But as you know, sometimes with work, depending on the types of agencies and the type of clients you work with, there's only so much you can do for a client, and whatever bright ideas that you might have, you can suggest it to them, sell it in. And sometimes, especially enterprise level clients, it may take some time for your recommendations to get implemented. And basically I was bored at work and I couldn't switch off. I still had a lot of bright ideas and stuff I wanted to test and learn myself. And just through word of mouth, some of my old clients reached out just to go, hey, do you have capacity to help me out? So I said, yeah, no worries. Let me see what I can do. And I basically channeled that inquisitive nature of testing and learning and trying different techniques on slightly smaller clients where they had an appetite and gave me the flexibility to implement and test different things without, fully breaking their website. And that's how, from my consultancy side, one client turned to two turned to three turned to six, and it just snowballed. Yeah, where I was not sleeping all too much because I had to service my own clients. And that's when I decided, you know what, I think I might start my own little agency doing this.
And that was, I think, started by a 2-man team that now is close to 500, I believe.
Yeah. So Overdose Digital started as a 2-man operation from Auckland. So prior to that, I had my own agency called Bespoke. And I knew the founders of Overdose Digital really, really well. We worked together really closely on a couple of projects. And when they decided to launch into Australia, Overdose Digital essentially acquired Bespoke, my agency, and I've been one of the owner shareholders here ever since, leading up the SEO operations for the agency.
I'm not too sure how this really works, but when a company does get acquired, how big of a shift is there in terms of process and management? Does it usually stay the same, or is there like a slight difference sometimes?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, but for my own personal experience, nothing changed. I was given the flexibility to run my department the way I see fit. So from my perspective, it was quite literally not a big change at all. It's just that I have now the backing of a larger agency for me to be able to implement what I want to implement, test and learn what I want to test and learn, and basically having the breadth of clients that I can work on a constant basis.
And like, I feel like that's the kind of way you would expect things to go. Sometimes if you do get acquired by a bigger company, there's a big fear that they might just start implementing their own processes.
Yeah.
And spoil your your routine, your workflow. So I'm glad that at least you guys
100%.
had a much more smoother process.
Yeah, 100%.
But to get into, let's say, the more nitty-gritty details of things, while doing research for this podcast, we did find out that you've got like immense experience in the field of SEO, but more specifically in e-commerce as well.
Yeah.
And a couple of years back, you also did a prediction, like a couple of predictions as well. So I was wondering if you could maybe go back to those predictions, or at least give us the new predictions for the years to come.
So prior to the pandemic, before it was a thing, I think the prediction that you're referring to was in 2021. So I sort of predicted that e-commerce is going to significantly boom and skyrocket, and Shopify would be the platform of choice for a lot of merchants and retailers. I think that prediction was true. I also predicted that Shopify would further enhance their SEO capabilities as a platform. That also came through. A lot of flexibility and SEO smarts have been built into the platform ever since. Yeah, I think those are the two main ones. I can't think of any other things of what other predictions I had.
I think speed and usability will become.
Yes, speed and usability is also another one. Yeah, Core Web Vitals came in and nice and hot. Everyone's super passionate about that. Yes, that was also one prediction. So user experience is obviously huge ranking factor, and a lot of people are putting emphasis onto that right now.
So what do you think will be the predictions for the, let's say, next 2 years?
Next 2 years, I think the hot topic of AI will never disappear. I think it's going to stick around for the next 2 years. I think a lot of e-commerce websites or e-commerce brands will start to leverage the technology of Chat GPT and all the different AI text that's available out there to see how they can streamline their optimization of the website, or how they can better trade their website and service their customers a little bit better. So just a case in point, Shopify, immediately when ChatGPT was blowing up, they've already managed to integrate ChatGPT or some sort of AI technology into their product descriptions, where it allows merchants to easily create unique product descriptions via the Shopify backend, which I think was really, really smart and really, really quick to market, which is fantastic.
And I feel like if you do start talking about AI and the Chat GPT, we'll just never stop talking.
Exactly.
So I'll keep that topic a little bit for later. But I wanted to jump back into e-commerce. And I think I kind of made the jump by, talking about your company and then directly into e-commerce. So I kind of want to make a little bridge between the two. You do provide, like, let's say, e-commerce services at Overdose, or is it?
Correct. So Overdose Digital, we are a full-service e-commerce agency. So what that basically means is, on top of SEO, which is the department or the pillar of service that I lead, we also provide consultancy service, website development service, UX, UI, CRO, paid search, social ads, email automation, everything you can think of to help a retail brand succeed online. We're there to help.
Okay, so let's say I am a retail brand that wants to start placing my store online. What would be your, let's say, initiation conversation you would have with me, and what would be some suggestions you would give to help me, start off my store?
Yeah, so I guess we should always start off by understanding the products that the client wants to sell and what are their aspirations. So if they're selling a specific product where it's only a handful of products, it's not like thousands and thousands of product SKUs, then, our recommendations and suggestions would differ vastly, right? So everything kicks off by understanding what the client is trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, their goals and targets. And then from there, we can then slowly peel the onion just to go, all right, what are your budgets now? Do you want to start small? What are your aspirations? Do you have investments or investors? Do you have a capital that you are that you're secured that you can launch the business correctly? What are your immediate plans for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? And then from there, we will slowly work with the client to craft something that will be suitable for them, because not everyone wants to go full enterprise e-commerce platform immediately. You can start small and then scale out that way. So I guess very, very important to align with the client's expectations. So that tends to be our approach when it comes to working with clients.
And what are some, let's say, mistakes that you normally find when these website owners come to you with their not suggestions, but more of their requests?
Yeah, I think a lot of people tend to dream really big, which is not a bad thing. It's good to dream big, but sometimes also trying to dissect that big target or a goal that you want to achieve into bite-sized pieces and make it applicable. Like I don't know how many times we've had initial conversations with prospective clients whereby I want to be the number one in women's dresses or women's fashion. I'm like, it's not going to happen immediately. You got to give me something more realistic. What do you want to achieve in a month's time, in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time? Like, it didn't take Nike or Adidas to be the brand that they are today overnight, right? There's not a lot of virality in building a brand. So sometimes we just have to, take that really high expectation and bring them back to earth a little bit and start to put some tangible goals and achievable goals in place.
Let's say again, like I'm still the website owner, I'm trying to start up my online store, and I've asked you these questions and I've gotten like an initial understanding of what I should do. But now the kind of problem I'm reaching is there are multiple platforms and there's different ways to get it done. Shopify, WooCommerce and BigCommerce as well. So one question is, do you have a specific platform that you would suggest? And two, what are the pros and cons of each?
Yeah, I don't have a preference. From an SEO perspective, I think all the e-commerce platforms have their own individual deficiencies when it comes to SEO. But from a client's perspective, I guess it's how savvy are you with code and how familiar with technology, right? So if the client tells me, you know what, I want something simple to use, something that I can easily learn, and the interface is not too difficult to use, then I would suggest something like a Shopify, right? Or if someone is a little bit more hands-on, they don't mind dabbling to code, they're not willing to pay a license fee to use the e-commerce platform, then something like a WordPress WooCommerce platform would suit them as well. So it really depends, again, on the client's savviness and willing to get their hands dirty. But anyone who comes to me and goes, you know what, I want to validate an idea. I have an idea about starting an online store. I would tell them, go with Shopify. You can't go wrong. It's affordable. It's turnkey, easy to set up. There's so many good out-of-the-box templates that's readily available that can help you. You can literally launch an online store overnight.
Is there a
quite easily
competitor to Shopify, or do you believe Shopify is the go-to platform?
BigCommerce comes really close. It's also pretty turnkey. And I think there's also another platform, Squarespace also does it quite well. And I think there's also other platforms that keep popping up now. So everyone's just trying to monetize the e-commerce game now that e-commerce is such a booming industry.
I feel like if they do, let's say, have a close competitor as well, the people who are trying to choose these platforms are going to have a lot of hard time just picking which one is the most appropriate for their needs. But I feel like you've mentioned that Shopify kind of fits all needs, right?
I think so. I think Shopify is a very easy to use platform. Like I have a client who is a 50-year-old gentleman who literally just discovered digital marketing, and he managed to launch his own site in a matter of days. And all he needed help with is, hey, I don't know how to populate my title tag. I don't know how to craft it with the right keywords. Like, he could navigate the back end of Shopify with no problems, monitor his conversions, and get his revenue reports with no issues. So I think Shopify has nailed his end consumer targeting there. I think they just made everything so simple for everybody.
Yeah, and I think the more simple it is, the more easy you're going to get people to be involved, right?
Exactly, 100%.
Like from what I've seen, the more complicated a software is or a service, it's mainly for those people who are very professional in that field and know exactly what they're doing to play around with those settings.
Yeah.
But like for someone like me, I would love Shopify where everything is pretty much just given to me and I just make a few clicks here and there.
That's it. Press a few buttons and you have an online store.
Yeah. So I think I'll take it into consideration and start one maybe in a couple of days over the weekend.
Yeah, I'll hold you to that.
You bring up the SEO side of e-commerce, right? And how keyword research is still the main thing that needs to be done, even though you have your online store. So how is that approach in e-commerce? Is it a bit different from regular SEO or is it?
Yeah, so it is a little bit different because if you are in the, I don't know, a service-based industry type of business where, if you're a plumber, your keyword research would be very focused towards the location that you're servicing as a plumber. But from an e-commerce standpoint, there's no borders. You can sell your products to someone based in Dubai or United States or the UK or New Zealand or Australia. So the keyword research does differ slightly, and especially if you have a very deep product inventory. So if you have a lot of product SKUs that you're selling, knowing how to group those products and name those product categories and group them together plays a very, very important role from the SEO perspective. So, we do a lot of intensive keyword research. Yes, and everyone can do keyword research. We can get thousands and thousands of keyword ideas, but I think the keyword clustering and siloing and grouping them into logical themes, that's where it's part art, part science, in my opinion.
But in terms of, let's say, e-commerce sites in general and the SEO side of it, let's say there are ranking factors like site speed. Do those take any leniency when it's applied to e-commerce stores? Does it really matter as much?
That's a really good question. I think it does. So site speed, in my opinion, based on my own observations, is really dependent on the websites that you're competing against, right? So if website A and website B has identical product offering, really strong from a link building perspective, your on-site is strong on both sides, then the only, what's the word I'm looking for? A chain breaker, to decide which page to rank first over the other would be page speed and page experience, right? So the faster your website is, the better experience your website has, would trump over your competitor there. So I think that's where I see it happen before in my own experience. But whether page speed should be the core focus before optimizing your website with the correct keywords and content and good technical, no. Page speed comes after. Got to get fundamentals right first before you worry about page speed.
And where does, let's say, internal linking rank on that list of search ranking factors?
Ooh, I think it's very, very important. If Google can't crawl a website naturally via internal links and be able to decipher the relevancy of each page on your website through internal linking, then I think you have not done your job correctly. So internal linking is quite high up in my ranking factors, probably one of those fundamental things that I audit a website on first before worrying about page speed.
But I think nowadays building links and backlinks are getting a bit of, I wouldn't say a negative look, but it's not really looking best right now. So
yeah,
I was going to say, how difficult is that environment right now? And what ways do you have to kind of work around it?
Test and learn. You got to test and learn and validate some of the ideas. So thankfully, there's a lot of people out there who are doing a lot of A/B testing. The guys from Search Pilot publish a lot of case studies, which help me personally to advise clients and show them that this is the right thing to do. Let's test it. If it doesn't work, we can always revert it back. So yeah, I guess that's always been my mantra. It's like, don't discount things. Don't read things on the internet where you saw a tweet or a blog post and take it for gospel. You got to test it yourself to know whether it's actually working for your industry and for your country and for the niche that you're targeting in, right? So every niche is different.
But in terms of like testing and kind of tracking, and I'm going to draw a long jump over here. The another thing that you would have to kind of test and track would be your either web analytics or content marketing as well. You do need to understand
Right.
exactly how it's being set up and tracked. So we'll start with the web analytics part, and then we can maybe go into the content marketing.
Sure.
But how do you basically track your website goals on, let's say, Google Analytics?
So because we predominantly deal with e-commerce clients, so having accurate data is super important. So when we first onboard a client, we make sure that their e-commerce tracking, the full funnel e-commerce tracking is enabled and configured correctly. So the best test or the best check would be once enhanced e-commerce is enabled correctly, it should match the numbers that you see in your e-commerce platform. So in Shopify backend versus what GA is displaying, there will be differences, but it shouldn't be huge differences. So it should sort of match. So that's how we tend to validate whether the analytics tracking is accurate. What do we track and report on? A myriad of things. So obviously the top priority metric would be revenue, followed by conversions, followed by traffic. So it's always in that priority chain. And obviously, we need to compare how the organic search channel is performing in comparison to other channels. Because sometimes, as we all know, if the client's very active on paid search, there could be some cannibalization happening on our brand terms, which can cause the organic search channel to decline temporarily. Or Google changed up, their SERPs, whereby they decide to serve more ads and take up more organic real estate and starting to push our organic listings down even further from above the fold. So there's a lot of all these things that we need to consider, and having a good channel comparison report is super important.
I was going to say that what you mentioned were, let's say, external factors that you need to be prepared for by yourself, or some, let's say, internal common mistakes that people make on their own when checking and tracking their GA?
I think people, if for an e-commerce business, so obviously e-commerce tracking is super important to them, and a lot of clients tend to ignore the micro conversions of a website. So how many email signups did they get? How many people bounced away after they added something into the checkout, into the basket? How many people actually clicked on your contact us page and left? All these micro conversions actually matter because, we have a client that we do a lot of content marketing for, and we've basically helped them quadruple their traffic organically. And they just told me, you know what, Jason, I like the traffic. It looks really impressive, but they're not converting. I'm like, okay, let's do some analysis, right? So I think a lot of clients, they forget there's a full funnel report in Google Analytics that you can get. I think it's called multi-channel reporting. So you can actually see from your blog how many touch points before someone converts and whether the blog was part of the conversion process. And when we did the analysis and showed the client to go, yes, the blog is getting a lot of initial traffic because all our blog articles were awareness-based. But then you can see 2 days later, this same person actually purchased and became a customer. And we showed them that the highest converting funnel, the blog had a touch point within that funnel. So sometimes it's about knowing where to look for the data and making sure that those funnel reports are set up correctly so that you can help you prove to the client that the strategy that you put in place was rock solid.
To develop, let's say, a funnel like that, did it take a lot of time, or was it more of like, again, testing out here and there what would work better versus what doesn't really work?
It was a lot of testing and learning. So once we found initially that the traffic was coming through, and when the client complained that there isn't any direct revenue attributed to the blog articles that we produce for our clients, that's when we go, okay, let's find other ways of closing the gap. How can we make the initial person who landed on an article convert immediately? That's when we started to incorporate a lot of purchasable modules. So a lot of product modules that we started to embed within the blog articles in an accordion format and a bit of a slider format. So when the article talks about top 10 products to look out for in 2023, instead of just a long form article of 1,000 words with maybe some images, we started to pull some of the products in there, some of the product reviews in there, so that we can make things clickable and they can add to cart directly from the article rather than jumping to the product page. So we did a lot of that, and that helped with direct conversions from the blog articles that we produced.
And is this something that you maybe noticed in other agencies as well? Or was it something that you feel is relatively new and you could be pioneering that?
No, it's definitely not something new. Nothing is ever new. I think whatever bright idea that you might have, someone may have already done it.
On the other side of the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I was following a lot of e-commerce brands in the States and in the UK because they tend to be a little bit more progressive, a little bit more aggressive with their approach. And that's where I got the idea from.
So do you feel like there are, let's say, another emerging trends like this that could probably help other brands in e-commerce sites? Because everyone is sticking to the standard.
No, 100%. So I think everyone in e-commerce should actually take notice of a brand in the US called REI.com. So REI.com, they are an outdoor brand, and the way that they have evolved their website over the years is fantastic from an e-commerce SEO perspective. Like if I was not in Overdose Digital, if I could work for REI, that would be my preference. They are a very, very cool brand. The way they've incorporated content and commerce into their website, second to none, best in class, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm taking a quick look and I'm like, wow, I barely need 5 seconds and I pretty much have all the information I need. Oh, that's products as well.
Everything.
Like if I was very outdoorsy, I would pretty much have to call right now and make a sale.
That's it. That's it. They just do it right. Yeah.
That that kind of threw me off because I was like, wait a minute, this is something I've not really heard of, and it's really making me think now. But how does one, let's say, come up with a strategy like that where they know for a fact that this is what the customers do want and this is the kind of content we're going to make around it? Is there like any thought process behind it? Yeah.
So it's part art, part science again. So I guess it boils down to keyword and topic research. So like I said, I didn't come up with the bright idea. I saw someone do it and I thought, oh, maybe I could do this for my client's niche. So we did a lot of content ideation, so to speak, finding out. We actually sat down with the client's customer service team to go, what are the most commonly asked questions when someone, rings up, and other than complaining about their shipping being a bit too long or refund process, are there any product specific stuff? And we actually sat down with them, and they also had a chat bot on their website so they could keep track of all the commonly asked questions that someone had. And we collated all of them, and we found out that, people are asking a lot of questions about, I've got dry skin, I don't know what product to use. So we figured, why not we come up with the idea of partnering up with a local beautician, get her to provide some advice about, if you have dry skin, these are the top 10 products that you should consider. And obviously, once we had the initial topic, then we did some keyword research and topic research to solidify the headline, all the subheadings, all the talking points within the blog article, and fleshed it out that way. So, like I said, part art, part science. Sometimes it all starts with a hunch, and you just have to be creative about where you look for the data. It's not always keyword research tools that would give you the best ideas. It's always the people within the organization, customer service data, that kind of stuff.
Kind of, let's say, drifting away from the topic, you didn't mention how you had someone who was kind of experienced in the field to give you top tips for that service, let's say. So part of my ignorance, but this is basically like influencer marketing, right? In a way.
Yes, correct. Yeah, it could be. You could tap into an influencer to help you produce that kind of content, but we came with the intention of boosting our clients' EAT, because when you're starting to provide skincare advice or financial advice or something like that,
you better
need someone who's an expert. You need someone who has the credentials. So we deliberately convinced the client to get a local beautician to help out a small business, and also tap into their credentials as part of that process too.
In terms of marketing in general, though, if you are, let's say, putting it out this way and you get someone to write the content for you, not for you, but at least give you the ideas for it so that you know that you're not talking amateur stuff and it's expert time now. How do you measure the effectiveness of that?
Measuring effectiveness of authority and expertise is quite difficult. So the way we measure the effectiveness of content is through page views, sessions, and pages viewed per session. Those are probably the three main metrics that we use to measure content stickiness. And like I said before, measuring the micro conversions as well. So obviously every blog will have an email subscription box. Make sure we track that. There will be pop-ups for offers and stuff like that. Make sure we track that as well. And if you have a chat bot that pops up, how many interactions, how many people actually clicked on that while landing on that article that you just published also matters. So I think taking into consideration some of the micro conversions that occurs on the website to tie back to measuring the success of content is, I think, very important.
But in terms, this might be something that I kind of brought up a bit earlier, how you were doing consulting and still working on other jobs, but you still somehow aligned yourself to get the goals and the objectives completed. Likewise, when you're working with, let's say, different departments in content or SEO, or even marketing for that matter, and all three are working, how do you make sure that all departments are working with the same intent and alignment?
I think it's about communication and communicating what the North Star is. Like, it's always good that we tell people we're doing this for SEO. We're doing this for SEO. Everyone tends to fall into that trap, but that means nothing to a business owner. They know they need SEO, but what are you trying to achieve by doing this? So we always bring it back down to what are the OKRs? OKRs basically means what we're trying to achieve, right? So we want to achieve a 20% traffic growth and want to achieve a 30% revenue growth year on year. This is one initiative to help us get there. And this will contribute 5% to that 20% growth. So we always do a bit of justification and opportunity forecasts to make sure that everyone is aligned to doing that. And it's difficult, I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work, but that's probably one way to make sure that everyone is working towards the same goal and everyone is seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and not different tunnels that everyone goes into. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's going into the same tunnel and working on the same thing and achieving the same.
From the top-down level, how do you ensure that these teams are collaborating and there's no real, let's say, conflict between them? I know this is more of like a leadership kind of question, but if you find
Yeah. So my leadership style is not to micromanage. I basically empower people to, my team anyway, to, I don't care how you get from point A to point B, right? As long as you get to point B in a reasonable time frame, whilst achieving some efficiency along the way, I'm okay with that. So that tends to be my leadership style. And the way to communicate that again is, what are we trying to achieve? This is what we're trying to do for this client. Now, everybody go brainstorm some ideas that is going to help us achieve that target for our client. And then from there, as a team, we can then brainstorm and validate each other's ideas and put it into practice. Anyone can come up with a good idea. It's how realistic you can translate that idea into a tangible business case to put in front of client. And that's the most important thing.
Can you give me an example of when, let's say, you came up with a problem and you needed to empower your team to come up with a solution, and let's say someone or a team surprised you?
Cool. I'll tell you a recent example. So what we found was that the larger the client, basically the more products a client has, the longer it took us to do keyword research, which makes sense, right? If you have 5,000 products, it will probably take you X number of hours to do keyword research. But if you have 50,000 products, your keyword research time would be compounded multiple times, right? So what we found was that our keyword research process was taking slightly longer, especially the keyword mapping process. So I challenged one of my team members. I just told them that, hey, I think we're spending a lot of time doing keyword mapping. Let's find a way to automate it. And, that was my brief to my team. And they will go and investigate some new tools to use. And, some came up with the bright idea of using Chat GPT to help to group keywords together and then feed it a list of URLs and then match keywords based on those URLs. People are very resourceful if you give them the time and space to do that. So that's probably one example where, we're starting to change our processes a little bit to be a little bit smarter. So work smarter, not harder, and try to better utilize our time.
We're trying to keep that as our motto as well, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, Chat GPT has been a great help in that field. Couple of questions with that now. One is, do you feel Chat GPT is going to be helping a lot of businesses, specifically the industry that we're in? And two, how detrimental do you think it'll be to people who already assume Chat GPT is going to take their jobs?
I don't think Chat GPT will take anyone's job away. If anything, it just enhances and makes our lives so much easier. I'll just give you an example. I live in Excel. I'm sure you do as well, working in digital marketing. Everyone needs to know Excel. But sometimes when there's this, you're trying to automate something in Excel using formulas and it just does not work. No matter how many Google searches you do or tutorials you read, somehow it just does not fix it. So ChatGPT really helped me. I wanted to do this massive relation database thing within Excel and trying to automate a report for a client. And I was at it for like 4 hours. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use ChatGPT. Just tell them my problem and say, this is what I'm trying to do. And magically it just gave me a formula, which I copy and pasted into my Google Sheet. And I did a few tweaks of the few variables and voila, it just worked.
Everything good to go.
So I think it's going to be a massive assistant to a lot of people, especially for me anyway. I think the application of ChatGPT will make people speed up their workload, do things smarter, not harder. Is it going to replace jobs? I don't think so. If you are solely relying on ChatGPT to write content for you automatically, forget about it.
Kind of wanted to add on to what you had said. We also needed to we had to fill out a big sheet as well with a lot of information. And we also were very like, do we really want to do this like cell by cell? And we did find a Chat GPT alternative, but it was more of like a plugin for the Excel sheet, where you basically use Chat GPT, but just on your Excel sheet, and it will still create all the formulas for you. Yeah. I was just suggesting if you've tried that out, or would you?
I think I know which product you're talking about. I think it starts with N. I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
extension basically.
Yeah, correct. That one was quite powerful too. Yeah. No, we are testing a few different tools at the moment, just trying to figure out what works best for our workflow and the way we like to operate. But man, there's so many of these new extensions and tools coming up. You just can't keep up.
I was going to ask, what are some of the new capabilities you think that these kind of tools like ChatGPT and other AI marketing tools, what kind of new features would they be able to come up with in the future? I think being connected to the internet would be the next step, I guess.
Yeah. Having more real-time data incorporated into AI, I think if anyone can nail that would be a game changer. And then I think uniqueness is a problem at the moment, because that's what I found. A lot of people boast that, hey, I published 50 articles with ChatGPT and had this traffic boost, but for how long, right? Google's going to catch up to it. And if you can come up with that same article idea, I'm sure someone else would have the same idea that you're going to plug into Chat GPT with the exact same prompt.
Exactly.
And guess what? You're going to get the exact same article, and to be a content article, so it's just going to be plaguing the internet. So I think if someone can come up with a product which, yes, can help you write better, produce articles better, but if there is an element of uniqueness at play as well, I think that would be a big game changer.
I mean, I feel like that might be a bit of a hard thing to do as well, because if, let's say, you created content using a specific prompt, and me on the other side of the world also uses that exact same prompt, I think unless the OpenAI database something understands that you have asked and I have asked the same prompt, unless they can figure out the difference between the content we should be providing to each, it's a bit, I mean, I'm not an AI professional, but I feel like that might be a bit too much for them to do right now.
No, exactly. So I think that's where you gotta train the AI with some prompts upfront before you initiate the writing process, I suppose. So we've been trialing a few of these things, but we haven't nailed it yet. So we're still in the experimenting phases of that at the moment. So yeah, like I said right at the beginning, if you're thinking that ChatGPT will solve your content problems, that's not the case. It's just there to help you along the way. You still have to do the hard yards. So it's not going to replace anyone's jobs yet, I don't think.
Yeah. Like I keep bringing it up on the podcast because I feel like there are quite a few people out there listening being like, is AI going to take my job specifically? Because I'm a content writer, let's say. So I've got a lot of people being like, no, it's not going to be like, it's not going to take your jobs, be fine. So I'm just using it as like a disclaimer for the podcast. But I think it's more of like a moral, ethical question now. If Google is seeing, let's say, duplicated content that isn't really duplicated, but like it's being repeated technically. Someone made their content and this person made his content, and they're both technically ranking for the same thing, but one, let's say, wrote it purely through Chat GPT and one wrote it on his own. How is Google going to, first of all, define which one is better? And what do you think if Google is choosing the AI over the human?
I think it's too early to tell. To be honest, if you ask me, I've been testing a couple of AI writing tools recently, and there was one AI writing tool, which I'm not going to mention, that pumped out a content that read beautifully. From my perspective, it was perfect. You know, I told them the tone that I wanted, the topics that I needed to cover, the FAQs that I wanted to include. It sped up the content for me beautifully. But then when I plugged that into originality.ai, it detected 100% AI written content. I'm like, what? If I were to write the content, that's exactly how I would write it. So I actually don't know how Google and other search engines are going to detect and accurately rank content. Yeah, that part I don't know. I think it's still too early to tell.
The question is, should they be bothered? Because if, let's say, your AI content is satisfying the user experience and intent, does it really matter if it was AI or human?
No, from my opinion, I think it doesn't matter. I mean, if you've produced the content through ChatGPT and through human intervention, you reviewed it as a brand owner, you reviewed it, you go, yep, that's my turn, yep, I like it, then I think it's okay. I mean, if then you publish that piece of content and it converts like crazy and you're getting the revenue in,
what's the problem?
What's the problem with that, right? So I honestly don't think Google will completely crack down, or search engines they won't be able to completely crack down, because again, AI is constantly evolving as well with more data points and stuff. Like, how can you keep up? And there has to be a breaking point, like a line in the sand. But what that line in the sand is, I'm not sure. But yeah, ethically, I think I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, like, from my point of view also, I feel like as long as we're doing what Google needs us to do, it's not really that ethically harming to anyone technically.
No.
I mean, the most moral part of it is ourselves being like, do I want to claim this as my own content, or do I want to mention somewhere or other that AI was used?
Yeah.
Should that be a thing now?
That's...
Because, you know, giving the author bio as my name, where 80% of it was technically done by Chat GPT, no one has to know, but I will know.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I don't know where I sit with that. I think I'm sitting on a fence. Part of me wants that disclosure.
Right.
If you're a Forbes or something like that, like you're a media publisher, then I think it's morally correct for you to reveal that and attribute that to the technology that you use. But if you're a small business, I don't see why you need to declare that. I mean, 50-50. I'm on the fence on that one.
Yeah, and I think it's fine if you, again, like you said, if you're a small business, it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting the job done.
Yeah.
But you've used Chat GPT at least for some work of yours for the company and SEO and marketing. Do you have any kind of set process in place where you can make sure that whatever inputs you're putting in gives you the content that you require? It also is in tone with your tone and everything else?
Yeah, not yet. So we're still experimenting and testing a few different frameworks and approaches to how we can incorporate that into our workflow. But what we found almost immediately is you can't use some AI technology, generate a piece of content, and publish it immediately. There has to be some human intervention. So what we're trying to decipher now is how much human intervention is required and what human intervention needs to do to make a content really, really good from an SEO perspective as well as for our clients. So I think we're still trying to figure out the checks and balances and what other ways to take whatever ChatGPT or AI technology that you use and make it really, really good, like even better. So yeah, we're still trying to figure it out.
How much, let's say, % of intervention do you feel there is currently?
To be honest, I think if it can help us automate article outlines and then turn it into a content brief for a copywriter to produce, I think if we can nail that process, there would be a massive time saver for us.
Yeah, you still need to also like refine that process to make sure it sticks to your brand and your
100%
voice and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like you mentioned, it is helping technically with automation. So do you feel like there are any other tools that can help you with automation? Because I feel like ChatGPT and AI tools have existed for a long time, but we just never really gave it the term AI tool.
Yeah.
So are there other ones?
I think Python. So Python was quite hot in the last 2 years as well. A lot of people were talking about how Python can help to automate, mundane SEO tasks. I'm not a coder, so I was struggling to learn Python myself, and I know what I need to automate. That's where ChatGPT comes in. So most recently, I wanted to map some 404 errors at bulk, and I'm not going to do it manually. So what I did was I just asked ChatGPT to go, hey, I will need a Python script to be able to put into Google Colab where I can feed in a set of all URLs, which are 404, and input in a set of new URLs, which are 200 OK, and match it according to the URL string. Not the best approach. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but that was quite simplistic. I just want to test it out to see whether they can spit it out for me, and wasn't successful. Got me halfway there. I think because of some library declarations and stuff like that I needed to do myself on my own Google Colab. But at least it got me like the base code, which I can then maybe get a developer to help me out to clean up the process and the code to make it work. But at least, it can help me validate that this could work. If you have an idea, it could work by, getting some test code. And from there, you don't actually have to start from scratch. You have something that you can show a developer and go, this is what I'm trying to do. Here's the code that I got to. Can you just help me refine it and, make it a little bit better?
I feel like that's what mainly these tools are for. They can give you the backbone and structure for something, but you're the one who has to add in the details and the meat.
Yeah.
Unless you actually do that, then, well, you only have that structure and it's not really worth it.
Yeah. But then again, if you think about it, someone will have to come up with the idea first. A human needs to come up with the idea about a problem to solve before you use AI to help you solve it. So
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.